The Madman!
Balance changes are upon us soon. Across all decks, three of the most played cards are Bone Mare, Corridor Creeper, and Patches the Pirate, and they all got hit. And then finally, the arguably best deck of the format of Raza Priest has gotten Raza nerfed a bit. The 3 neutral cards are a really big deal because I have recently released videos that focused on Neutralstone, and there were a lot of decks that ran Bone Mare, Corridor Creeper, Patches the Pirates. Corridor Creeper, wow, isn't that a bit much? That card is probably gone, especially with Patches also getting nerfed. Patches, though, might still be in just because Patches is still a 0 mana 1/1 draw card whenever you play a pirate effectively. Not having charge makes the deck a lot weaker, decks that run it a lot weaker, and maybe there's going to start to be variants where you don't run the Patches, and a variant where you do still run the Patches, just because it might still be that good. In fact, Bone Mare is the least run of these 3, but it's understandable that in a move away from Neutralstone that they would still hit the 3rd most popular neutral behind Corridor Creeper and Patches. Taking a moment to explore the most popular decks played across all ranks. They are Tempo Rogue. 3 of the cards of Tempo Rogue got nerfed. Highlander Priest. Raza got nerfed, which is a really big deal since now when you play Valen and then Mind Blast, you only have the ability to use your hero power once pretty much, since Valen costs 7 and then Mind Blast costs 2. That said though, Highlander Priest probably isn't dead because of it. You can still run the Highlander Priest without the Valen, and that's probably what the deck is going to turn into. And it's probably going to be an anti-aggro deck. Cube Warlock does not get hit by any of these nerfs, and everyone is crying out, oh my god, it's going to be Warlock Stone. And that is very good level 1 thinking. In that, yeah, if every other deck gets hit, then the deck that doesn't get hit should be amazing. But you can counter Cube Warlock with a few select decks that you couldn't before. One is Spiteful Priest. Spiteful Priest was a little bit weak to aggressive decks. Decks that could control it, and it wasn't that great against Highlander Priest. But it was great against Cube Warlock because you could cast your Mind Control on Voidlord, and that was a really good counter. And you could cheat out really big cards extremely fast on turn 6, and they don't really have an answer for that. Spiteful Priest is an option. Secret Mage is a very good option, which runs none of Bone Mare, Corridor Creeper, or Patches. Secret Mage got bullied out because of Tempo Rogue, because it would get controlled off the board too much. But with Patches no longer having charge, and with Corridor Creeper not giving quite as much impact, Secret Mage is going to be a lot more popular, and you're going to start to see a lot more Aluneth and Cursing that, by the way, Weapon Destruction might be better, because now there's Aluneth and Skull for Cube Warlock. Aggro Hunter is a good counter to Cube Warlock because you just kill them really fast and then you steady shot them. And with less Raza Priest, that actually means that silence is a lot better. So you can even ignore Taunt. Spellbreaker, by the way, is going to be a much more powerful card if Cube Warlock is more popular. So there are a lot of ways to hate out Cube Warlock. There might even be some interesting options, such as Divine Spirit Inner Fire, maybe combined with, well, I mean, the good old Dragon Priest still. That doesn't get hit by anything. And you can just take their Void Lord and then Divine Spirit it, Inner Fire it, and then Wapow them. Next up on the list, Spiteful Priest gets Corridor Creeper and Patches nerfed, but there may be options for replacing it, or maybe you don't even replace Patches. Jade Druid theoretically sounds really good because it also doesn't get hit, and there have been some pros calling for the nerf of Ultimate Infestation because the card is too powerful, but I actually don't see that much of a problem with Jade Druid. Jade Druid is really weak against Cube Warlock, actually. So I think Jade Druid, even though it doesn't get hit, just naturally has a worse time because one of its best matchups got nerfed, Highlander Priest, and another one of its best matchups got nerfed, in general, like super aggressive decks, and Spreading Plague is a really good card against them. Next up on the list of popularity, Secret Mage. Secret Mage is one of the big winners of this nerf because Cube Warlock is more popular. Tempo decks are less popular. Tempo decks perform really well against Secret Mage. Secret Mage performs really well against Cube Block. So, hail Secret Mage. Zoo could be a strong option. Zoo is pretty decent against Cube Block. It's pretty good against Secret Mage, and though it has both all of Patches and Corridor Creeper and Bone Marrow get nerfed, there are quite a lot of options for how to build your Zoo. Aggro Druid is one of the decks that perhaps gets hit a bit harder because it relied a lot on Patches and Corridor Creeper, cheap cards while getting buffed. And then after that, there are a number of other decks. The really interesting thing to think about when evaluating this, though, is not only will all the decks change to counter Cube Block a bit more, maybe Cube Block runs rampant for a day or two or a few days, then people will start citing in the hate when Cube Warlock gets too popular, the silences and the weapon destruction. You'll see a lot of decks build differently because they no longer have to survive the huge burst from Raza Priest. So Jade Druid could build very differently. They could build an anti-Warlock lineup and perhaps even make that favored somehow. Warrior had an interesting moment in the limelight when everyone was playing Raza Priest and Cube Warlock. There were actually a few people who took Pirate Warrior up to the top ranks. With the hit to Patches, though, and Corridor Creeper, as well as the removal of one of the best matchups for the Pirate Warrior, I expect Pirate Warrior to probably die off unless Cube Warlock becomes so staggeringly popular that Pirate Warrior decides to prey on Cube Warlock. But also remember, Cube Warlock doesn't have to tech against Raza Priest anymore. Perhaps you see more Control Warlocks because of it, in fact. Because Cube Warlock was mainly more popular due to the possibility of like killing the Raza Priest before they killed you. Now that you don't have to worry about that race, maybe you see Cube Warlock becoming more of the Control Warlock types, the ones that only run Void Lord and don't run Doomguard. And if they don't run Doomguard, by the way, the weapon removal isn't going to be that good. Skull of the Minari won't exist in that deck. Shaman will still probably be dead because Shaman, the only reason why Shaman had any chance was because the neutral cards were really good. So with the loss of Patches, Corridor Creeper, and Bone Mare, RIP Shaman. One of the decks I haven't talked about is actually Big Spell Mage. On paper, it has a really negative matchup against Cube Warlock, and level 1 thinking is Cube Warlock is going to be really powerful, so Big Spell Mage might be terrible, but there might be ways to build it, and Cube Warlock might adapt in ways that just make it more vulnerable to big spells. You can always polymorph the Void Lords, of course. But one of the reasons why Big Spell Mage came about is because it was a reasonable deck against Raza Priest. Big Spell Mage is probably still a generally reasonable deck against a lot of things. But one of the problems is if Secret Mage rises in popularity, Big Spell Mage is really bad against Secret Mage. The problem with Murloc Paladin and Aggro Paladin, I haven't talked about these two decks as much because they really fell out of favor. Well, let's start with Aggro Paladin. Aggro Paladin runs Patches and Corridor Creeper, and that's part of what makes their deck good. Especially with Call to Arms spawning so many men, as well as the hero power spawning a guy. So Corridor Creeper just had so much synergy with that, they're going to be hit hard by that. But as well, Cube Warlock, or Demon Control Warlock, so to say, being much more popular, and not having to deal with Raza Priest so they can tech more against aggro, is going to really hurt the Aggro Paladin and the Murloc Paladin. Murloc Paladin is a deck that it doesn't get hit with the Patches and with the Bone Mare, but does get hit on the Corridor Creeper. But the main problem with Murloc Paladin is that Cube Warlock will be really strong against it. Not Cube Warlock as much as Control Warlock, but Control Warlock could really get in there too. There's also one more thing I haven't talked about, which is big decks in general. Big decks like Big Priest and Big Druid. So they don't get hit by any of these nerfs as well. One of their weaknesses was that they just got rushed down by aggro with the loss of Patches and Corridor Creeper and Bone Mare. Not lost, but getting weakened. Big Priest can survive a bit longer, maybe put on some pressure early. But overall, I think the deck might be a little too inconsistent. Plus, it's not like the aggro is going away. Secret Mage has a strong matchup against this deck still. I would have changed some pretty different cards, I would say. But I think this does the job in removing the most played cards. The cards that the community might just be tired of seeing over and over again. Shifting things away from Neutralstone and giving classes a bit more identity, as well as hitting problem number 1 of Raza Priest, perhaps both having not quite enough counters to it, and just being overall too powerful at the high levels. Perhaps I personally would have included a buff to some warrior or shaman cards to make them playable for the end of this expansion cycle, but I'm sure they'll be getting goodies the next expansion. In general conclusion here's how I see the meta shaping out. Early on, Cube Warlock is identified as pretty much the strongest deck by default if no one tries to counter it, but then people are going to try to counter it with weapon removal if the Cube Warlock remains popular, but I actually think that the Demon Warlock might be more popular, the Control Warlock without the Skull of the Minari and without the Doom Guards, since you no longer have to burst down Raza Priest, since they can't burst you down. Decks that are good against Warlock will come about, people will run more silences. Secret Mage gets a lot better, and Secret Mage might actually be the big winner because their cards are not hit. And one of their best matchups, Cube Warlock, will be more popular. And the decks that are really good against Secret Mage, namely tempo decks, got hit by the nerf of Patches and Corridor Creeper. And Bone Mare.